好，大家好，今天呢是我们沃优升学给大家做了一个就是 Scholastic 写作竞赛的这种 Q&A。我们呢这次呢 Scholastic 那个 Camp 写作 Camp 是在8月底开始，就是有早鸟报名结束。为了帮大家更好的了解这个什么是 Scholastic。这是一个什么样的竞赛？这个竞赛都需要做些什么呢？还有我们那个 camp 的计划是什么？课程是什么样子呢？我发现有很多家长已经在群里在问了啊，都有什么呀？都是什么呀？有些家长可能连听说都没听说过，或者有些家长听说过，但是呢从来没有参与过哈。我们呢就这次呢就举行了这次 Q&A 一场答疑的这种一个活动。先介绍一下哈，我花个10秒钟介绍一下我们的沃优机构哈是什么呢？我们是一个北美独立的，就是升学顾问机构，是属于这种小而美，以小而美为宗旨的。创始人胡林老师呢是在这里面，跟我都是 co-founder。那我们的顾问团队呢有很多，我和胡林老师在这里面做 counseling，还有呢 Grace 老师是我们的文书的 coach，还有其他的，还有 Sila 呀，还有 Andrea 都是我们的文书 coach。在我们的团队呢，还有很多其他的就是合作伙伴，帮我们一起在各个项目还有各个方面来带领学生，给学生以选校和包括就业为方向的这种选校指导。我们的机构呢是美国为数不多的有4家权威机构背书的顾问机构。是我们有 UCLA certificate 的，就是胡林老师是拿的这个UCLA 的那个授证。我们是拿卡、还有 i 卡、还有海卡的3大升学机构的会员。我们呢就是在很多的时候都会去各种会议啊，还有各种的培训、各种资讯上，都是从这些 resource 里能拿到很多的这种最新的信息。所以呢，我们那个信息呢就是非常及时，而且可以每年每个时间段都有给学生可以做很及时的调整。这就是我们的信息还有我们的合作，一个非常简单的开场白。我们现在呢都是在忙，很多。现在我们其实声音很低哈，就是因为我们太忙了，就是忙各个学生的这种升学申请。但是呢，因为我们觉得写作是升学中非常非常重要的要素，所以我们才在暑假做了一个《纽约时报》的写作训练夏令营。还有呢，我们紧接着在那个呢之后呢，我们做了一个打算给家长再提供一个像 Scholastic 这种竞赛写作夏令营，不是夏令营，竞赛写作集训哈。好吧，我现在把时间就交给我们那个 Coach Grace 的手里，他会给我们讲解，就是我们这个是什么样的课程。Hi Grace, are you ready?
I
I
sure
was speaking
am.
Chinese. Yeah. I'll stop share. I'll let you share your stuff.
Fabulous. Well, hi, my name is Grace Pachar-Yanada. I recognize some names from the New York Times the writing competition boot camp earlier this summer. But for those of you that don't know me, my name is Grace. I am a practicing writer. I have publications in fields from cultural journalism to poetry to prose to essays and everything in between. I'm also an editorial strategist, as well as oh, perfect. I'll get to that in a second. As well as a writer, and a writing coach. So I kind of have my mind on what kind of hi.
What?
Oh, you're fine. No worries.
What?
Happens to me all the time. But I'm very excited to be leading the Scholastic Camp. So, without further ado, I know you already have one first question, so we can get right to it. Um, what birthday is the youngest who can attend Scholastic this year? What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. Um, I have the Scholastic website here, and I'm just pulling this up just so you guys know there's quite a lot of information on this website, a bit of an information overload, which is why I really want to go through it with you guys. So really, it depends on the program. So certain programs only have like are for high school seniors. Certain programs are for everyone. Um, And let me see. I want to make sure I get the right answer for y'all. I believe as long as you are in high school, you should be able to submit, if not younger. Oh, here we've got chat open. Grade 7 through 12. Thank you, Ling. Fabulous. We will be doing I thought there was a page. All that being said, we will be doing critical essays, memoirs, and poetry. So if that's helpful as well. What other questions do y'all have? And feel free to come off mute and just and holler as well.
Some parents are curious about the schedule of the courses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We can definitely go over that. Let me stop sharing my screen. So I'm about to say a lot because it is a relatively long competition, but I just want you to know that this will all be coming out in an email, the full schedule, once you sign up. So don't feel like you have to write all this down really quickly. So this is an 8-week program. It's going to start on Sunday. I believe it's the 20th. Yes. Sunday, the 20th of September, will be the first live lesson, Sunday morning. So that one will just be an introduction to critical essays and memoirs all together. And then the following Sunday, it will be Sunday mornings pretty much exclusively. We'll go over poetry. And then the next week is technically an optional session, week 3. But I would highly, highly encourage your students to come to this office hour session. That's for one-on-one support. I really want to acknowledge that a lot of this writing can be pretty vulnerable. So I want to make sure that there's a space for folks to flesh out their brainstorming ideas, to ask any questions that they have, and then to have that one-on-one targeted time to figure out really how to start. That's honestly tends to be the hardest part. The week 4 is, I think that's the 11th of October, will be a group debriefing that will be about an hour, same time, Sunday morning, Eastern time. We will workshop everyone's pieces. So all the students will be asked to submit their works in progress within, yes, I will absolutely do that. I can do that right now. Here we go. I'm just sending the link to Scholastic. The group debriefing. So the students will be asked to review their each other's work, critique them. There'll be a certain amount of time depending on how many students have submitted their work. Critique, all productive, just to flesh through. And then that opens up into 3 weeks of asynchronous editing. So each week, your student can send over their work in progress and work with me to edit it and move on to the next revision. Last but not least, on November 8th will be our last live session. That's the 8th week. It will be a general reflection on what we've learned, what we've done together. Parents will be invited to that and encouraged as well. And also, I really want to cover what can be done with this work if you don't win the award. I got my first publication when I was the summer before my senior year of high school. So it's very important to me that students know that you don't need to be a grad student, you don't need to be a professional author, you don't need to be over 18 to get your work submitted. There are ways to find publications that may publish your work. So that will be the topic of our last 8 weeks, stretching from September 20th to November 8th.
Grace, some parents ask me about what's the difference between like our program is a combination between the offline editing plus debriefing, like live Zoom meeting, right? Some of the programs they are only offer offline or just on-site, like course classes format instruction. Could you please compare what's the pros cons and between these two format?
between async and synchronous lessons and the combination of both?
Right, combination both, and some others maybe just like, they are all in-person classes.
Ah, yes. Okay, that's a fabulous, fabulous point. So the reason that we have all these different formats and types of meetings within this 8-week period is we want to firstly acknowledge the different types of learners and workers. So for some students learn by taking it in. Auditory learners, they're listening, they're taking notes, and they're applying it. Other students are verbal processors. They need that discussion to feel inspired and motivated to work. Other students simply need time. They need to see the words on the page to be able to develop them. So instead of bringing kids in, having everyone sit in a room every single, either 1 week every evening or several weeks in a row, a lot of people, myself included, find it very difficult to write in environments like that. Very difficult to produce that work. And specifically the workshopping, which is the 4th week out of 8, right in the middle, can be the most vulnerable. Presenting your creative work to be critiqued, especially in high school, every single week for several weeks or every single day for a week can be very difficult. So we have the lecture, we have the group discussion, and then we have async editing. I want to point out we have 3 weeks of asynchronous editing. And that doesn't mean your student will send me it, I'll correct grammar and punctuation and send it right back. In fact, I try to shy away from line editing. I do line editing, obviously. If I see a mistake, I always correct it. But it is for the revisions process. I want your students to learn how to self-edit. I want them to learn how to draft, second draft, third draft, and feel comfortable moving on to submission. So those 3 weeks are for kids to take their time to be able to go through revisions. And we are suggesting students should have 2 to 3 different pieces of submissions that are ready to be submitted by the end of the course. So that way, if your student really wants to focus only on critical essay, your student wants a knockout critical essay, they have 3 weeks to nail that. Whereas if they really want to try their hand at each of the topics that we're looking at, they have 3 weeks to do that. So that is really the pros and the reasons that we have structured the classes like so, compared to a more traditional approach or an entirely online asynchronous approach. I hope that answers the question. I saw another question in the chat. What weekly hours/efforts would you expect the students to be working on the writing so that they can achieve good results? It's a fabulous question. And it truly does depend on the student. That's not a cop-out answer. And the reason I could give some estimates, and I certainly will, but one thing I learned from quite a few of your students within the New York Times writing boot camp this summer is some students can sit down and in 15 minutes whip out hundreds of words and send me every single week on the dot, hundreds of words that they worked on in half an hour. Other students might only submitted 1 or 2 submissions of 250 words approximately. And I know that they worked hard. They self-edited, they researched for their work, and there's no better or worse way to do it. What I would expect is within the first 2 weeks, some substantial brainstorming, however long it would take your student to fill up 2 pages, single-spaced, in Google Docs or Microsoft Word. However long that would take, that's what I would expect from them. And then as we get into the week 3 towards week 4, I would be shooting for, let's say, approximately 2 hours a week, 1 to 2 hours a week, depending on their speed. But whatever it takes for them to be able to, by October 11th, have a draft that is, if not complete, then we can see the arc, we can see where it's going, and we can work on that together. Something substantial that we can all review together, approximately 2 hours a week. Beyond that, it again depends on the goals, but I would, after that first 11th, if a student wants to do all 3 submissions, so critical essay, memoir, and poetry, I would budget out another hour to 2 hours a week per work. So if you want to do 1 week critical essay, about 1 to 2 hours. Second week memoir, 2 hours. Poetry is complicated. That is the most fluid of the 3 subjects. So a student could take 20 minutes, submit a haiku for revisions, and that would be, that's a poem. Or they could write a sonnet, using a certain type of rhyme structure, or they could do a free verse that's epic in scale, several pages that could take especially upwards of 1 to 2 hours. So it truly is what a student makes of it, but I would generally, as an average, prescribe 1 to 2 hours per week.
Hi, Grace. So you said the students can submit 3 pieces of articles. So first is the critical essay. What's the second one?
Memoir, personal narrative.
Okay. And I see in the introduction, they also have other writing.
Yeah.
As well, like flash fiction and speculative fiction. Is that also the student can choose as well, or for this class is only for the 3 one you just mentioned?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I actually want to clarify. I believe I misspoke. So it will be, I don't know why I threw memoir in there. We will be doing critical essay, flash fiction, which is short fiction up to 1,000 words, and poetry. I'm so sorry, but you're exactly right. There are other forms within the introduction that we can highlight. I really want to take the time to focus on those 3 mediums. I chose these 3 alongside Ling and Hua to make sure that students can hone 3 very different skills. So with critical essay, we're looking at reasoning, we're looking at rhetoric, we're looking at unique voice and a compelling argument. Flash fiction, we're looking at the narrative arc and an ability to compose a beginning, middle, and end in a very, very short amount of space. Poetry, that one, as you can probably, I won't have to go on that one. That really truly is creative. That's authenticity. That's being able to look at other poems and seeing where your creativity and your unique voice can fit in. So we chose those 3 because it feels like a great foundation. So if a student comes to me and they really, truly are only interested in writing speculative fiction, absolutely, we can support that. The tools that we use within the flash fiction and within the critical essay specifically, those two, as well as obviously the creativity of the poetry as well, will assist your student in writing their speculative fiction story if that's what they so choose. So we'll have the foundational reasoning world building skills that you get from the critical essay and the narrative skills you get from flash fiction. The same as memoir, as I mentioned. So that also follows this foundational structure, technical structure of critical essay and the narrative structure of flash fiction. Those are the 3 categories we would recommend submitting into, just because they're the ones that we will be working on the most, discussing the most, instructing the most on. But as I said, if your student really, 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 really wants to do a screenplay, for instance, then, especially recommend coming to office hours so we can take that time to work through it together. But all are encouraged, but the 3 are critical essay, flash fiction, and poetry are the ones we recommend this year, at least. Thanks. Has this program been offered before? If so, do you have some great examples from past competitions? I do not believe we have offered this program before, but I am happy to, discuss the lessons that we've learned within the New York Times writing boot camp this summer, and discuss any of my approaches to pedagogy and teaching if that might be helpful. There are also lots of examples within the website that I sent. If you want to go over them with your child, see what kind of writing might be inspiring them the most. I hope that that's helpful, Chris. And what's a size limit for fabulous? Thank you, Chris. What's the size limit for the class? How do you divide your time coaching many students at the same time within one class? Great question. I do not believe that there's a strict size limit, but Ling and Hua, do you want to jump in just on that part?
Yeah, we don't have size limit since it's online. There's no need for on-site, so we have physical difficulty to accommodating the size of student. And
Yeah.
then because I think from New York Times we didn't limit the size, and then
Yeah.
but the coaching is common, right? How you coach, there's a common ground, and how you
Yes.
basic foundation is there. But office hour is personalized of our like address the personal questions, and offline editing is personalized.
Yep.
So yeah.
Thank you so much. Exactly. Second everything. And on top of that, part of my pedagogy, my preferred pedagogy is I obviously steer and drive these courses, but I feel that some of the best way for students to learn of all ages is for them to have the opportunity to teach a small amount. So even if your student is not the chattiest or not the most ready to share their writing, to get into their inner thoughts, especially something like poetry. That is totally okay. If your student wants to just give a few short word answers, I can't pull their teeth. But what I can do is say, okay, student one, I would love to hear your perspective on student two's work, on the metaphor used, on the figurative language. Was the hook? Were you hooked? Were you able to read comfortably, properly? How is the flow? These sort of discussion questions that I encourage them to ask each other. Not only is the time, and the attention mine to give to them, but it's also for them to give to each other and for me to mediate that. And I find that approach works within incredibly large courses, as well as very small 3 to 4 person courses as well. So any other thoughts that I could answer or clarify for anyone?
Hi, Grace. What's the deadline to submit the writing?
The deadline. Let me share.
And so after we complete the writing, we will submit by ourselves, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Just because
Grace,
sorry.
I can help answer this question. So the deadline is different for each region. When you register, you sign up, create an account, you fill out the information with your school. So it's based on the child's school address, and each region is different. But they are slightly, probably like 2 weeks difference. So it's based on each region.
So we should register right now, or we should register the account right now, or
no, it's not that urgent. So it has not opened yet.
Okay, I see. Okay, thank you.
Will the lessons be recorded for students? Yes, 100%. And they will be sent out to students shortly after the session is over, usually about 10 to 15 minutes later. There will also be small pre-class assignments for students just to get them cooking and to be able to have students come into class with something in their toolbox to discuss, so no one feels, on the spot, I have to create a story right now, just to be able to get their thoughts turning. So the first time that they're interacting with their own work isn't the week before workshopping. So there is going to be pretty regular communication. So not only will they be receiving lesson recordings, they'll be hearing from me earlier in the week. They'll be hearing from me during the revisions process. So any questions, missing gaps that anyone might have, I'm always available and happy to answer. Of course, absolutely.
Grace, I have some question. One question. So, can you also introduce to the audience about speculative fiction?
100%. So
Yeah.
speculative fiction is, science fiction. I'm sorry, I did not mean to interrupt. I think I got too excited about speculative fiction. Was just the introduction or is there anything else? I'm sorry.
Me? It's
Yeah.
just, introduction about that.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I got too excited. So speculative fiction is science fiction, but the reason that it is not labeled as science fiction specifically is because speculative is science fiction with a philosophy, not necessarily world building, if that's the direction you want to go through. Speculative fiction asks your student to play with allegory, figurative language, metaphors. They want commentary on the world, the future, society within the work that can be reflected outwards. An example I like to give that everyone knows but wouldn't think of as speculative fiction is The Hunger Games. That is a direct allegory for very specific things like reality TV, violence among youth, inequality, and in a really deeply constructed, really interesting and weird story. So that is science fiction in the future, but it is also speculative. I hope that, and it's a story and narrative beginning, middle, end, fiction, and yeah, I would say that's speculative fiction for you.
Thank you.
Of course. What are the criterion for a great article? That's a great, an incredible question. So, great criterion for a great article. It truly depends, as I said, on the medium, but what these readers are going to be looking for when it comes to the competition, and if a student tries to submit this for publication elsewhere after, is unique writing style. In the age of AI, this is quite literally more important than it's ever been. They want writing that sounds raw, somewhat imperfect, in that everyone can put their work into a machine and have it be completely purified. They want authentic work and work that specifically makes you think. So within a critical essay, you want a balanced, nuanced, and reasonable claim that's backed up by not only unique, interesting, and compelling evidence, but also is on a topic that an adult could read and say, wow, this makes me think. This is a very well-rounded opinion for someone of this age to have. And it doesn't necessarily need to be serious. I think that is something I notice parents and students often assume, that this all has to be very serious. No irony, very direct, very intense. And a critical essay does not have to be serious. It does not have to be on a dark issue. It does not have to be on politics. You are analyzing a situation, an argument within the context of our society. And uniqueness and authenticity, as well as a well-balanced claim, are what readers will be looking for within a critical essay. Flash fiction. So not only do you just have the general preferences that are quite universal among readers, which is there a well-founded beginning, middle, and end? Is there an arc? Is this readable? Is this interesting? Are you bumped at any point? In that, by bumped, I mean if you've ever read something and a certain sentence or paragraph isn't quite adding up and you feel like you have to reread the paragraph several times to be able to move forward, that's bumping. But the difference between flash fiction and short fiction is that there has to be another element of uniqueness in that the narrative arc has to be concise, again, compelling, but it has to feel complete or deliberately incomplete before 1,000 words. You don't get the detail. You don't get to play with the prose. You have to be able to self-edit in a way to create a story of this length. Poetry, this, again, as I said before, is going to be the most broad, loose answer possible, because quite literally anything can be a good poem. But what I would recommend your students do in any of these categories, but specifically poetry, if they have the steam for it, is to go online, and I will absolutely be sending this as a pre-class assignment, sneak peek. I'll send over several teen targeted publications. I want them to read the poems. What makes them excited? What makes them feel uncomfortable? Referencing obviously the poetry that they read at school, but also referencing modern poetry, referencing poetry that their peers are writing. Where is what I call the white space? What is no one saying? What is no one talking about? What is no one addressing? This does not mean inherently modern, absurd, free-form work. We aren't seeing a lot of sonnets. Sometimes sonnets do tend to perform well. It's all about seeing what perspective you can bring within the genre and seeing what others are not doing and filling in that space. That tends to be what poetry judges are looking for, intentionality. What kind of awards are we competing for? How was the outcome last year? So, do you mean like the outcome generally of the Scholastic competition or like last year?
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Like from this program, like you served as a primary, advisor.
Yeah, totally. That is a great question. So, this will be the first year that we are running this program specifically, but last year, the biggest issue is with AI. They are getting quite a bit stricter with plagiarism checks and AI checks, reviewing the information, in the last week or two preparing for this. It is hammered that there can revoke your award if they detect any form of, they say, AI generation. And the reason they use those words very specifically is it does not clarify if AI can be used in the editing process, if it can be used in the brainstorming process. It's intentionally vague. So that is the biggest development from last year. When it comes to awards, I would like to share my screen just to go over this together because it's quite a lot of information. So looking at categories, let's look at poetry. Good thing.
Grace,
Yes.
while you're looking for something, can I just add?
Oh, please, yes, go right ahead.
那个家长，我来用中文说啊，就是关于那个 award 这方面，因为它是先是 regional， 所以所有的 regional 提交上去之后，它有个 regional 的 awards，regional award 是非常好拿的，所以我觉得这个是对就是增加孩子的自信心方面是非常好。regional award 基本上你能如果达到 top 十几个 percent， 它有几个有 gold 的，有 silver， 然后还有 honorable mention。能达到大概前10%几都能拿到奖，所以这个奖呢是对孩子一个非常大的一个鼓励，因为写作本身就是一件持续的、长久的需要培养的事情。等到 regional 之后，然后它会 automatically 自动的去筛选 nationwide 拿的奖还是比较难的。像我女儿，因为她自己本身比较喜欢写作，所以她每年自从7年级开始，每年都在参加。她前面几年是没有拿到奖的，那去年呢就拿到了 regional 的。拿到了一个 gold， 一个 silver， 所以就对他是一个莫大的一个鼓励。然后对学生来说，不管你后面是申请一些 private school 啊、私立高中，或者你申请 summer school 的时候，你申请任何东西，它这个都可以放在你的 resume 上面，然后作为你一个 award。Grace, I'm okay. I'm done. Thank you.
I was gonna say, I think you completely answered that question. You knocked that out of the park. Unless there was something I missed.
我再补充一句哈，in Chinese, sorry, in Chinese, Grace, to that question, just to share. So we had 我拿中文讲嘛。 我们有那个前面指导的学生，我们有录斯坦福的，有那个有哈佛的，他们都是手里握着几个的 Gold 奖，就 Scholastic，就是这种往好学校走的，他的写作能力是一定要强的，不管你是 STEM 还是社科文科，你写作也是一定要强的。就是我们的看到的规律就是说，他们所有的孩子社科类都很强，不管是那个你是读什么专业，他们写作，尤其是写作。很多都是有这种奖项在手的，就这么补充一下。哦，Go ahead, Grace.
Oh no, I think y'all nailed it. I think y'all absolutely nailed it. Are there any other questions y'all have about pedagogy, about specifically what the readers are looking for, or the 8-week process that I could answer, or of course anything else that y'all might be wondering about?
Just curious, how many students know Grace? Like, how many of us in the audience like joined the summer New York time? If you never did that summer camp, do you want to know Grace? Like, Grace, you're probably interested in your background, maybe.
True. Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to share just a little bit more about my background. So, I graduated from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in 2023 with degrees in English and comparative literature, as well as an award in rhetoric, outstanding achievement in rhetorical studies. I also was in film school, so my final thesis was writing a full-length screenplay. It was one of my pride and joys. I have been publishing for about a decade. I have quite a few dozen publications, as well as a few different awards, just internet awards, but awards nonetheless, that are, widely available on my portfolio. So I have my favorites personally are my published creative nonfiction essays, as well as my cultural studies essays. But I got my start in publishing from poetry specifically, so it's very close to my heart. Let me see. I saw a question pop up. What's the most recommended form of writing for this contest? Very interesting question. And the answer is generally, when it comes to who's submitting what and how, the poetry is going to get the most submissions. It's a pretty universal subject you can train, and I'm going to provide lots of different technical skills. But poetry is the sort of thing that many students feel they can just put out, and some of them very successfully. But that's why I really want to focus on that, because some really well-honed poetry can cut through a lot of the fat. So that is one of the most submitted. The more complex and specialized forms of writing, like speculative fiction, like screenplays, they tend to get less memoir, will get more personal narrative. But when it comes to recommended, what is recommended is submitting multiple different types of pieces. The more that you can submit anywhere universally when it comes to publishing and awards, the better. And publishing a variety. Every year, the amounts of submissions within the fields are different. Also, another reason we selected the genres that we did is flash fiction and poetry specifically. Those are some of the easiest for teens that, if they do not get the award, are able to submit those to literary publications to be able to add those to their college applications and their resumes. And it's quite a powerful ad. So recommended between us is those three to submit, but generally it is what your student feels they can bring the most unique perspective to. That would be my personal recommendation. Another thing about my background I forgot to mention is I have been hosting workshops for about 3 years for writers. I started a workshop in my home city of Durham, North Carolina, for local writers, and that has grown and expanded to artists of all forms. I led, mediated, and organized virtually every single meeting weekly for 3 years. So it is a great passion of mine to push writers to their greatest potential. I find I'm honestly a better editor than I am a writer in that the brainstorming, the potential building is what I tend to see the best. So that's a little bit more about my background. I believe I heard something off mic, but I might have heard something. So if anyone has a question, feel free to hop off mute.
If no more questions, we can end earlier.
How would you, that's fabulous. How would you help some students who may feel frustrated or not satisfied with their progress? They are just kids. Totally. I very much take that approach. And the way I interact with children is very different than the way I interact with adult writers. I also am a writing coach for students of all ages as well as adults. So my approaches to them are very different. I pride myself on judging upon when I'm reviewing someone's work and amidst a group who are reviewing each other's work. The biggest competition that you have is with yourself. I am not going to read someone's poem and reference Maya Angelou unless I feel it would be, helpful to do so. I'm not going to compare students to each other. I'm not going to judge students on metrics that they themselves are not working within. My job and my philosophy is to motivate students to be intentional, to compete with themselves. And the most important piece of my philosophy, I actually learned this in film school. My approach to editing is that I will provide as many solutions as is possible for me to do that would be obviously helpful. I don't feel it's right to point out, flaws or things to be revised without also providing suggestions. But I'm adamant that does not mean my word is law. My goal is for students to think critically and intentionally about their work and their production. So if I end up accidentally suggesting that your student cuts what they feel is their strongest line in the essay, keep it, please. But what I need is for you to tell me why. I want the choice to be deliberate, not just, but I like it. I want students to feel empowered to, if I suggest an edit, all I'm doing is pointing at a gap and saying, I'm not receiving this the way that you're delivering it. How do you want to revise, reference, and address the concern that I have? All students are competing with themselves, not with each other. And writing is, in my opinion, one of the most sensitive and vulnerable activities you can do. That's also why it was really important to me to have office hours. That if a student is frustrated, they can come to me privately and saying, I want to write about this. It's inspired by a family member that passed. It's inspired by my own struggles with my mental health. It's inspired by, my lived experiences, but I don't know how to start, or I'm feeling hurt or struggling with the fact that other students are on a different wavelength than I am. The office hours is for them to tell me that so I can work with them and not against them or parallel to them. It's very important to me that students feel as supported as possible by me during this process. So I'm very glad you asked that question.
Hi, Grace. I have another question about the submission, the articles. So, so once the kids complete those writing, so are you also work through with them how to submit this writing? Because right now when I look at the website, and they said when you enter the writing work, you have to copy paste in a text box. So I'm not sure those copy paste will have changed the format of all the writing. So are you also discuss those things with students as well? Okay.
100%.
Okay.
Another one of these post AI developments within creative competitions is that the methods for submission are significantly more particular than they have ever been. So it's very important to me, such as, for example, for the New York Times Writing Boot Camp, they were absolutely adamant that you submit a Google Doc so they could review the version history of it to demonstrate that they didn't plug something into ChatGPT and then copy pasted it in. They wanted to see their revisions process. So they will feel fully empowered to submit. I will go over that entirely with them. And I'm also very much available via email for any questions or bumps that happen as the weeks go on.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. At any point, parents are expected to get involved a bit, or do you prefer they're completely out of the picture? Chinese parents tend to offer support when needed. That is very much up to the parent. I had a very involved mother that was very involved in my education and reading through my work. But I also have peers who were, and writers I've worked with whose parents are very hands-off, children I've worked with whose parents just, let us work. I don't feel that there is a pro or con to either approach. What I do think it's important is for parents to be aware of the pre-class assignments to ensure that students can feel prepared and driven, especially when the school year is going on, to come into these weekend meetings ready to have something to discuss. That's my biggest ask is, if you see an email come in with a pre-class assignment, just sending it right over to the student. But in terms of involvement in, the production process, I'm very open to working with parents. I believe that I can know your child's writing from front to back, but the way that they think, where their blocks are. So if you ever have any concerns or anything about your student that you feel is important for me to know, either before class or as class goes on, please feel free to reach out to me. I feel we work together.
I'll say for that, please, when you register, please make your email available in the registration. Please make your student email available and your WeChat there. It's non-skippable. Previously in New York time, we didn't ask questions, so we couldn't locate parents. We have hard time locate who is who. So we learned that lesson, including in our college application summer camp. We got a registration. We have nowhere to locate a parent. So please, when you register, please put your information there.
How will you help kids do revisions many times to have a satisfying final essay? Thanks. So that I would recommend one email to me per week of those 3 asynchronous sessions, 3 asynchronous weeks, excuse me. I would highly recommend that, whether that is, 2 essays in one email sent, 1 poem in this email sent, so I can compare, contrast, and be able to dedicate a specific amount of time. Having secondary or tertiary emails, following that or revisions on top of the 1 week's revisions. I will give students a timeline, especially towards the end of the competitions. But I would say 1 per asynchronous week. And there's the week of feedback, the 4th week when the group debriefs. So you get group feedback as opposed to handwritten feedback from me before async. So there's sessions for personalized revisions. Yes, not live sessions, nor is it recorded. There are 3 weeks that are set for me to be effectively editor on call for your student. It's the 3 weeks. If last week is week 8, it's weeks 5 through 7, where they can feel free to email me, 1 email a week with as much or as little as that they'd like me to review. I will edit, provide extensive personal feedback per piece, send that back. If they have any follow-up questions, I'm absolutely happy to answer them. But in terms of revisions, about 1 email of revisions per week. So the answer to that question, sorry if that was convoluted. There are not live sessions for personalized revisions. It's 3 weeks that are set aside for me to be editor on call. Any other questions? There's any form of question, I'm always happy to answer. I want to make sure that y'all feel ready to get going if you so choose to proceed. Well, oh, perfect. Well, thank you. I'm very excited to speak with hopefully Christopher again soon. It was a pleasure having him in the New York Times boot camp, so I'd love to have him join. Have you had any students who finally gave up the submission for whatever reason? That's a good give up. Do you mean just not submit or like give up on the draft? Yeah, not happy about the writing, so give up. Yes, I have. I view that as part of the editing process. In terms of, for example, just putting it and I don't know, I'm not the best at math, but when you get an answer completely wrong, right, you have to start over. You have to at least go back through the steps or completely start over. That is still a useful piece of work because you have to analyze how you got there. I will recommend to each and every student, I'm very adamant about this, that you either create a Google Drive folder, you have multiple tabs in a single Google document, and that nobody completely ever deletes everything. You don't know when that paragraph, for example, say a student starts a critical essay about sports. They do lots of research on a very specific, football team with a very specific story. They write all that out and they decide that this essay is they're completely disenchanted with it. It's not going anywhere. They do not feel comfortable or self-confident about it at all. And after working together with me, they don't feel that there is a path forward there. That research could absolutely come in handy for their flash fiction. Maybe there's clearly something about that topic that they were eager to unpack in the beginning. That can be useful later. And who knows that perhaps, you've got a student who's in 8th or 9th grade writing about a certain, flash fiction piece based off a lived experience that they have. Even if they choose not to proceed with that, they keep that writing, and then when college applications run around, you have an automatic piece of brainstorming that your student has already written out. Even inconclusive pieces are deeply helpful. And I'm a big proponent and will encourage your student to find a way to use that material so it wasn't not for naught. But dropping things and picking them up later is part of the writing process for me, for sure. When will you give us the schedule? I believe I'm gonna send that to Hua. I believe, though, should be out soon, but the first email that I'll send with all of the information to the parents who do sign up will be sent out the week, I believe the 13th of September, sorry. How can we sign up? I'll toss that to Hua.
We have a Google registration form. That's in the actually this link WeChat in the WeChat group. I will send out again if you are talking about sign up. Yeah.
Yeah. Any final questions? This time is y'all's, so I'm happy to answer anything I can. Well, if anything pops up, I'm happy to answer any questions that y'all have via email. I'm very excited. If I have not worked with your student yet, I'm very excited to meet them. I was overjoyed to get to know the writing styles of all the students in the New York Times boot camp. So if that was one of your students, please let them know that I'm really excited to keep pushing them towards their writing goals. This is a program that's very close to my heart. I'm a multi-genre writer. I've been writing since I was very young. So being able to pay forward that passion, that enthusiasm, and specifically though, the flexibility to be able to conquer multiple genres and to not feel pigeonholed into writing one specific topic. It's very near and dear to my heart. So thanks for hearing me out, and thanks for trusting me with your student. I am really looking forward to it.
Well, thank you, Grace. Thank you everyone who joined this meeting today. Looking forward to seeing you online in the classroom with Grace. See you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.